Welcome to our show, Purpose Meets Prosperity. I'm your host, Julie Getzinger. I help ambitious professionals to realize their higher purpose so that they can live a more fulfilling life. I'm going to be interviewing different people who have followed their intuition down a path that others may have questioned or thought it wouldn't work out for them. But it felt right to them. It felt like their purpose. It felt like their calling, and they kept at it, kept going towards it. And in doing so, it led to a path of prosperity. And prosperity to me is not just wealth in the terms of finances, but it's also joy. It's also love. It's abundance in all forms. So as we follow the path of purpose, that is the path to prosperity. The guests that I'm going to be interviewing, they are exhibiting that kind of life. So I want them to share some of the tips and things that kept them going down this path, and also help them to turn their pain into their purpose. So the challenges, the struggles, the obstacles, they were able to allow that to propel them further towards their purpose, which led to this path of prosperity. If you enjoyed today's interview, please share it with people who you think could also benefit from watching it. And if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on our show, please fill out the application below. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Welcome to Purpose Meets Prosperity. I'm your host, Julie Getzinger, and my mission is to help ambitious professionals to realize their higher purpose so that they can live a more fulfilling life. Today we have a special guest here, Nicole Robinson. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Super excited to have you here. Nicole and I met through networking and we clicked right away. Our work is very aligned. And we also met for lunch and we just completely hit it off, had so much fun together and so much in common, and things that we're looking to help people with are very much in alignment. So I was excited to have her on today as a guest.
Yeah, for sure. As soon as I heard you speak the first time we met, I was like, I think I want to have more conversation with Julie, and really enjoyed talking with you more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I would love to share a little bit more about Nicole before we dive into the interview. Let me share a little bit about Nicole so you can get to know her better. Nicole is a somatic coach and a somatic CranioSacral Therapist. As a coach, Nicole specializes in guiding women entrepreneurs into greater freedom in life and business through nervous system regulation and embodied intuition activation. She loves diving into all things body and integrating the body and nervous system into our lives, businesses, communities, earth connection, and creative expression. As a somatic and craniosacral therapist, Nicole supports her clients to find more ease in their bodies as they heal from trauma, chronic illness, and stress. Awesome. What a great mission you have, Nicole.
Thank you. Yes, I do love it.
And what got you started on this path? How did you land on this journey?
Well, what really launched me into it is when I got really sick in 2016. So I had a very big life-altering experience, a near-death experience. And after that was just had a lot of intense trauma and an illness going on, and just learning how to navigate that. It was trying to take this epic journey and kind of make it more concise is sometimes hard, but it brought me to my body. Essentially, it brought me to understanding and finding deeper layers of myself. And when your body's speaking that loudly, which it does, our bodies speak to us, and symptoms are one of the languages that they use. We have to start listening and finding ways to listen. So I was guided to different mentors and different practices and modalities and things to help me heal. And a couple years into that journey, I really started thinking, I want to help people heal too.
And so if somebody has symptoms like something's bothering them, their leg or whatever is bothering them, and they might just be inclined to go to the doctor and get some kind of prescription or get it diagnosed, go on with their life, what would you say to them? Like, what could be the underlying issues of something like pain in the body?
Well, I work really primarily a lot with the nervous system as a basis for kind of everything that's functioning in the body, because it is like our control center. And anything that we're experiencing, let's just say that maybe there's emotions that we might have been bottling up. A lot of people who end up with physical illness have the pattern of maybe throughout their lives, the way that they learned to process emotions with like the household they grew up in and things like that was to bottle them up. And that energy is still in the body. And so it needs to come out in some way, and oftentimes will come out as physical symptoms. That's like one of the most helpful ways to kind of help people understand things, right? So just as another example, sometimes it can take things pretty literally. Like we have these sayings that we'll use about the body, like, I feel heartbroken, or just like put one foot in front of the other. There's lots of different kind of sayings that we use that really are like somatic body oriented words. So if someone is feeling really tired all the time, or maybe they have a lot of back pain or something, it could be that they're literally carrying a burden in their lives emotionally. Maybe they're holding resentment or something. So there can be these more emotional, psychological life experiences that kind of manifest physically through the body. And it's really an interesting journey to kind of listen and start to hear what that story is. And it shows up a lot for women entrepreneurs too. As I work with women in their businesses, it's a very similar way that those things manifest when we're noticing if we're feeling really stuck or a lot of resistance, we're feeling anxiety or overwhelmed or burned out or a lot of pressure. We can look at, okay, well, let's like slow down and see what's going on in the body. Like, what are we really noticing inside right now instead of just trying to like solve problems?
And do you think it's about giving the body a voice? Like you said, I feel heartbroken. So asking that part of your body how it feels. And like you said, the suppressed emotion. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about for the past 2 weeks, I've had a lot of pressure on my chest and I've had coughing up mucus. And then I remembered Qigong and how she talked about grief and the lungs being associated with grief. So what could I say to myself or ask myself to help relieve some of this pressure that I felt on my chest?
Well, we can definitely dialogue with our bodies and parts of our bodies. And I think something that I've learned over time as I've kind of matured in the way I relate with my body is really giving it a lot of space to provide answers when it's ready, or for answers to come when they're ready, rather than like interrogating my body. And so I'll kind of put that out there as like, this journey is easier and more easeful and healthier the more that we really give ourselves space and are less urgent. But first of all, it might be like, wow, I'm sorry, body, that like you're having a hard time. And I'm sorry, self, that this is uncomfortable. And even the experience itself might create some emotion or struggle. And then maybe touching that part of the body. Let me know if there's anything that I can do to help. What do you need? And is there anything that you're feeling or anything that you have to tell me? And you can have space and you can wait to hear it. And you may or may not get anything in that moment, or you may have an image of like something to do to help your body. Maybe taking a walk will come to you, or something that might help your lymphatic system drain. It could be something more like physical that comes through, or a diet change that comes through, or it could be like a little piece or nudge of something bigger and emotional that maybe starts to unlock or unwind.
I love that. So more of a softer approach rather than demanding that the body feel better. And like me, I'm very active and I like to exercise a lot. I like to work. I like to be on the go. And when I'm sick or when I'm not feeling 100%, I get angry. Like I'm like, I don't have time for this. But like you're saying, have a softer approach and not demanding that the body get better on your timeline, but really stopping and listening to the body. I also believe that things happen to clear the path for the healing to happen. So if we don't choose to sit down and listen, the divine can clear for us. And people will cancel or things will happen, except the things that are meant to happen, like except this interview, which was meant to happen today. And the things that were meant to unfold that are helpful for both you and me and people listening, they still happen, but other things can be cleared away. What's your perspective on that, on the divine coming in and kind of changing things for us if we're not willing to do the healing work or we're avoiding it?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what you're saying. And I think what's kind of popping up the most for me is this, like the difference between like making something happen and allowing. And when we are working with the body, which is so interconnected with spirit and just like our minds and kind of every aspect of self and like all other life, I feel like the body's like a gateway or a portal to connection with so much else. It's so healing. Like if literally someone only walked away with one thing to be like, there's something happening in my body that is uncomfortable. Could I allow it just 5% more? Could I surrender just 5% more to what is? Which might be like, oh, I had this whole thing planned and then something changed. And now the universe and now my sense is this thing isn't in alignment or it's dropping away. Can I allow that? in life can I allow what is currently flowing in the kind of web of life and what is happening? Because I think that we are always supported in eventually, and it might not be in the way that we wanted to be.
I love that explanation. Yeah. Can we allow it? Can we sit with it? Can we let it unfold? I'm getting chills on this. It's so interesting when I do interviews like this. It's always like the person is speaking exactly to me and things that I need to hear. And no doubt that I am just a representative of the collective and others that have the same questions and the same similar struggles that I have of this is how I saw my life going. This is where I saw it, what I saw it being. And as a visionary, as an intuitive myself, I have received visions and then I question. I'm like, I saw that vision, but where I'm at right now doesn't feel like a match. So what's going on? And that's where the anger can come from. Like, I saw that. This doesn't feel like it's getting me to that. So what is your understanding of that? Like, why do we go through these times in life where it feels like we're getting off path, or it feels like, wait up, this isn't getting me there, or it seems like it's not? What do you think is going on with that?
It's such a good question. That has also been a pattern in my life as well. Anger too, for me, coming up from time to time where I'm like, but I've been following the guidance, or I've been listening and something isn't working out on the timeline that I thought, or like a sense of betrayal at times. And I think that we have to like meet that all with curiosity and compassion the best that we can. One thing that I have kind of discovered recently in like a similar dynamic in myself is a deeper layer underneath. For me, a lot of times this kind of, it asks me to look at that thing with urgency, like the issues that I have with urgency or with wanting things to happen now. Actually, that's not really how I want to live. Underneath of that, I do actually want to be in even more harmony with life. And so I think sometimes I'm still kind of coming from a place of urgency, and there's a filter. As I'm seeing the world and as information's coming to me, it's kind of like I'm building on a certain filter. And then at some point that falls away and there's a deeper layer of being in a way that actually is better for me. I'm kind of sinking deeper into what I truly desire and truly want out of life. But I think that is a process as humans. Like, even though we can be connected to the divine and we can receive guidance, like sometimes I think these are reminders that like we're humans and we are here to have a human experience. And so I think that for me, it's kind of been a transition of what is it? I want guidance of just like, what is going to work? Tell me what's going to work. And then me being like, okay, maybe it's not just about the end goal. It's not just about this thing working. It's how am I being on the way there? And that's part of what's being revealed to me as things shift in my life and as things fall away that I maybe thought that I wanted, that maybe I actually didn't even really want, or maybe there's something, a deeper desire or want that might even be simpler underneath. And so I think I've kind of more and more been leaning into learning and attuning to pleasure and desire in my body and simplicity in like my experience of pleasure and desire in life, rather than being more attuned to kind of like, how is this going to work? Spirit, give me advice for like, how is my business going to work? Because at the end of the day, I really want what I'm doing in my life to be like a true manifestation of myself, from me, from my essence, from my body.
That's so good. There's so much in that. It's just like we think we know what we want and on our timeline. And I've had that thought too as an entrepreneur. Like, why is nothing working? Why isn't this moving? Why? I know I was excited, and I believe the teachers I followed have taught that you follow your bliss, you follow what's exciting, and it feels really good and it feels exciting, it feels expansive. And then I go in that direction and it's like, there's nothing there. And it's almost like I feel like I've been duped. I've been guided off path for a reason. And then it's getting to that place of, well, if nothing's working, then there's nowhere to go but up, because it just feels like nothing's happening, nothing's working. And I also feel like sometimes abandoned by the higher power. And it's like, can feel like punishment. It can feel like denial, betrayal, like you said. And wondering how to get back on track, or if we just accept that right now I feel abandoned. Right now I feel confused. I feel like spirit's not communicating. And how do you get through the void?
Well, I appreciate like just your vulnerability and honesty about your experience, because I think that it can be kind of tempting or easy to like bypass some of that as in sharing our experiences. I think for me, it comes to coming back to myself and to simplicity. That always like resets me. And a lot of times for me, that can look like connecting with nature. Before I did all this healing work, my 20s was spent doing environmental and sustainability work and permaculture and organic farming. And so I had this mission of really wanting to heal the planet, heal the environment, and can kind of transition to help people heal. And they're very interconnected. And I think that part of it is looking at like that this is bigger than me. And I think that it's okay for us to want beautiful and abundant lives. And I think that there is also this constant coming back to the simplicity of being alive right now in this moment, being connected to earth and being curious about what was just falling away right there as I came back to myself again. In being connected to ourselves and coming back to ourselves, we are coming back to the divine as well and our humanness. I know it's not like a perfect answer, but I think that there's always something that grows in us and that we can become more true to ourselves every time that something like that happens.
Do you want to get paid to travel? Have you ever thought about hosting a retreat, sharing your story on stage, or writing a book? If so, you'll want to check out our Passion Project Retreat. Many of us have passions that we want to try someday, but never seem to get around to doing it. Come to our weekend retreat when we'll be clarifying the vision for your project, we'll break through any blocks to it being successful, and then we'll design a 90-day implementation plan to get it going. After the retreat, you'll have the opportunity to receive continued support and accountability as you roll out your passion project. To learn more, call or text Julie at 301-284-0789 or email her at julie@juliegetzinger.com.
And what do you mean by coming back to simplicity? Can you give me some examples of what does that mean to you?
I think that to me, that looks like coming back to like what I really know is good for me, which might look like slowing down, stretching, drinking water, sitting outside in the sun, meditating, talking to my partner, writing a poem, painting. I think that for me, we are kind of in this dance of remembering how to be present in our daily lives in this really organic way and not get like lost in like a far off future that we're trying to create.
As you were speaking, I heard coming back to your essence and that reminder to be in sun, to be in nature when we get into a place of too future thinking. And most entrepreneurs, I think, are. What's next? What's the next project? What do I need to get done? There's a lot involved with being an entrepreneur, and there are a lot of hats we wear and a lot of responsibilities as we grow. It can become more complicated. And I was listening to entrepreneurs talk on a podcast, and they were saying how they feel like they were happier before they were more successful. And it was interesting. And they were just saying it was more simple. There were less people that they were responsible for. There was less moving parts, and it was a simpler time. And as we grow in success as an entrepreneur, because we're doing our business because it brings us joy, and we also would like financial security, abundance, what guidance could you give to someone who may be on that verge of moving on to that next level of success and fearing that it will mean that they will no longer be happy or they will no longer be free, which is what they wanted in the first place?
I would say that we are always allowed to challenge the status quo of what is the norm. And I do think that there can be a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations that might be created of like, this is what it looks like to be a successful entrepreneur. But we're all different. We all have different joys and different needs and different desires. So really, really be attuned to yourself. If you're feeling burned out or pressure or like kind of getting irritable or having a hard time focusing, any of these things, get really curious and be like, is there something that like I actually need to say no to? Like that I'm saying yes to? Is there a boundary somewhere? Is there something I want to let go of? Because if you're worried about that kind of thing and you see other entrepreneurs out there and you're like, I'm tempted to kind of have that lifestyle and like be present online constantly and have a lot of offerings. But also some part of me is not sure, or maybe that's not actually right for me. I would say that we're always creating and we always get to start to do something new and different. And so your expression of what being an easeful entrepreneur is might look really different than someone else's. And that could look like more simplicity for some people. It could look like, I want to have these couple of different ways that I have income and I want to master them. That could be absolute pleasure. For someone else, it could look different. What is their absolute pleasure and what's going to click for them? So I would just say, trust. If there's something coming up in you that's unsure, or you hear someone say something, or someone, maybe a mentor gives you advice and you get kind of angry at first, but then you're like, okay, and you listen, like those can be signs that you're kind of bypassing what your true flow and your true desire is for you. So I think it's a journey, and anything that we try, whether it quote unquote works or not, we are learning about ourselves and we're learning a lot of skills. We're getting a lot of experience. So we don't have to like look back and regret anything that we've done, but we can just constantly kind of be like, oh, I'm just like getting to know myself more. What felt good? What didn't feel good?
I love that. And it's all just information. All of these experiences are just informing my next choice. And there's so much out there for entrepreneurs, so many temptations, so many different strategies, so many different modalities, platforms. There's just a lot. And I think for people like you and me who are healers, intuitives, it can get really overwhelming. I know I have the temptation to just shut it all down. I go on social media and I'm just like, get me out of here. Like, this is just feels like information screaming, just competing and not flow, not ease. It feels like the opposite of that. And I guess when we get in those places, it is our body telling us to just take a break from that. We don't have to pressure ourselves to be there. Like they say, keep showing up, keep showing up. Well, we need to show up for ourselves first. If we don't feel good, if we feel irritable and we show up, then that energy is going to transmit negatively, or we won't be seen because we're in that lower vibration. So coming back to your guidance about going out in nature, reconnecting to self, simplifying things. And what other guidance do you have for somebody who's feeling overwhelmed? Let's say they're even in their personal lives, like they're feeling overwhelmed. Most people, I think, when they're in burnout, don't know they're in it, but I think they can say, yes, I feel overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. So what guidance would you give to someone who might feel in that state of overwhelm?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that I always would just recommend people start to get curious about somatic work. And if you are able to have any access to it, it is one of the most life-changing things to be able to do like one-on-one work with a somatic practitioner, whoever that looks like. There's lots of somatic therapists out there, and there's people besides me, and there's me too. And if you don't have access to that kind of thing, you can start with getting to know a little bit more of what's going on with your body. And so I would say, like, I'll just throw a couple of really basic tools out there for people. So if you're going about your day, it's like little things that you can do that start to get you to be more attuned to what's happening inside. So one thing is we tend to live more in our upper body. A lot of times if I ask someone like, oh, check in, are you more present in your upper body or your lower body right now? They'll be like, oh, wow, I'm like way more up here. And so maybe just taking like little check-ins throughout the day to be like, am I in my upper or lower body right now? And being like, oh, you're probably in your upper body. So just start to bring a little bit of gentle awareness to your hips, your legs, your feet, and just that, and like staying with it, you'll start to notice that you start to drop into your lower body.
That's when we start feeling more secure, right? Like that's when we're feeling more rooted and grounded. And when you say upper body, it's like you're in your mind, your thoughts are spinning, you're kind of like trying to figure things out. But then bringing it down is like the grounded, like more relaxed.
Right. A lot of also like, I think heart and feeling energy can be in that upper body too. And when you kind of get into the lower body, what you're doing is you're bringing resource in, and resource is like a term that's used a lot in somatics, and capacity is a term that we use a lot. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're probably operating beyond your current nervous system capacity. And so one thing that we can do to increase our capacity in any moment is to bring in something that's resourcing. So it could be that you bring some awareness to your lower body, then all of a sudden you feel more grounded, your capacity goes up, and the intensity that's up here has more space and it spreads out a little and it becomes less intense. But there's lots of things that can be resources. It doesn't even have to be in your body, because some people actually don't feel safe in their body at all, or not much. And it can take time to develop that. So it could look like going outside and touching things in nature that you really enjoy. It could be like listening to the birds. So engaging with your senses is another of my kind of top really easy things to integrate, is again, maybe taking little breaks when you're noticing that you're feeling kind of anxious or maybe a little dissociated, and you go through your senses. Oh, what am I hearing right now? Okay, let me hear those things. What am I seeing right now? What am I feeling right now? Like touch. Am I feeling breeze on my skin? Or what am I tasting right now? What am I smelling right now? And you can also kind of notice as you do that, like what changes inside. What happens in my body when I'm like hearing the birds? Is there like a tingling or a certain color that I feel? Or do I have more space to breathe? So you can notice like what changed after the maybe few minutes that you spent engaging with your senses. What was different in your body afterwards? And just also your breath is another great anchor to kind of like just check in with throughout the day. Just notice, oh, how am I breathing right now? Let me follow my breath, and some inhales and exhales for a little while, or let me exhale much more slowly. So there's a lot of different like small tools, but it's kind of the practice of checking in regularly that can create some of the biggest change. Even those little spaces, it's almost like those just bring us a little bit more into awareness with ourselves. And maybe after a few days of doing that, you might have this light bulb just knowing all of a sudden of, oh my God, I was doing this thing for my friend that is absolutely beyond my capacity that I don't actually want to be doing. I have to tell her I can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. So like just space and regulation sometimes just creates enough movement and settling in your nervous system that then like maybe an actual action comes through that you can take that will then bring even more space in. So I think that a really great way to also think about this is we have our intuition, which is sensed often through the body. You know, it can be like clairsentience, we feel something, or claircognizance, we just know something. There's different ways to sense with our intuition, but then also there's like our nervous system. And sometimes people feel like confused, like, how do I listen to my body if it's like screaming that I'm unsafe? So there's kind of this discernment between, I'm dysregulated right now. It might not be the time to make a decision. I might not be able to have a really strong connection with my intuition now, but I know that when I'm dysregulated, here's a couple things that help me just bring it down a notch, bring a little bit more into the present moment. And that kind of sets me up to have that be my nervous system be more calm and quiet so that my intuition can be louder and more clear.
I love that. I feel it's just listening to you talk, I feel more relaxed. I feel like I've been like working through those things as you were sharing them. And this is the perfect thing to do today because I have been in a kind of a state of anxiousness and overwhelm and just feeling like I'm in a tunnel. Like, where is everything? Like, where am I? And that word disassociated, like feeling just in that void and that confusion. And just listening to those tools, I feel like I was walking through it and could feel that relaxed energy come back. And that's, like I was saying earlier, I feel like my intuition's been quiet and I don't know why. Well, it was because I wasn't really feeling connected to myself and feeling disassociated. Now, if somebody comes in to see you, what can they expect for a session? Like, walk us through that process of like somatic work. Like, what does that look like?
I'll talk maybe first about somatic coaching, and then I'll talk a little about the somatic therapy. There's a lot of overlap, but there's some differences. Like for somatic coaching, I work with women entrepreneurs. And so we'll start by just connecting and seeing, would this be a good fit? What kind of stuff are they working on? And then I offer different containers. And so we do like kind of goal setting and not just like, hey, I would like to make more money or this amount of money, but what's your relationship like with yourself and with your body? And like, how do you want to feel in your body when we're done working together and things like that? And in an actual session, and I would say this is kind of true across the board with all the work that I do, there's sort of a balance between, I'm always meeting you in the moment, meeting you where you are that day. And if we don't do that, then we don't create that. Everything I've been talking about is really literally about the space for what is, because we can't like move to what isn't yet until we actually have like been with what is here now. And so that can look like, hey, what is it you want to work on? Oh, let's see what's going on in your body. These are the physical things and the emotional things you're sensing as we talk about this topic. And then from there, we can work with the nervous system. We might be releasing some emotion. We might be working on resourcing and increasing their capacity, maybe kind of educating a little bit about how some of these different strategies maybe come out of our experiences earlier in life so that we can make connections to the patterns of, oh, wow, like I grew up in an environment in which I was attuning to everyone else's needs rather than my own, because that was what I needed to do to be safe. So now I'm not that in touch with my own needs or emotions or desires. And now I have a lot of unprocessed emotions built up. Okay, well, now I understand more what's going on, and I have a better framework for how I can gradually start shifting to become more attuned to myself. So we're always also kind of getting to help someone start to sense themselves, develop just like their sense of embodied intuition of themselves, like what is true for them in that moment. What is it that maybe that they actually do want? And the work is quite similar to that as I talk about somatic therapy. But with that, I also do touch work too, sometimes on the table. And with that, we can help just people kind of access more in their bodies than they might be able to do on their own without the touch work. And that can be really, really helpful for people who have early developmental trauma and things like that, where they might have a lot of wounding around attachment, like they didn't actually have a lot of support, have space held for them physically or their bodies or their emotions as children. So we're kind of providing that now and helping the nervous system re-educate itself about its relationships with other people and like how to actually access safety and how to self-regulate. So that's what my work is like.
I love the way you explain it. Like it makes so much sense of going back to the earlier time of our life when our nervous system felt off. And I believe that we manifest opportunities when we're ready to look at this stuff and we're ready to feel it. If we weren't, we wouldn't even be going through this. Like, it's like we would still be bypassing. But the fact that we are, then that, to me, it means it's something like really great that we've been asking for is like right there. Because it's like you're willing to look at this now. You're in it, you're feeling it, you notice it, you witness it. And you need to work through it to get to that next place that your soul is ready for. And I know with my work with my clients, when they're really going through it and I see a lot of emotion and I'm like, I get excited and I'm just like, oh, like this is so good. Like, because getting to that place of enough of this, or I'm ready to look at this now. What is this? Even the curiosity, what is this? What's going on? Means that you are ready and you're doing it. And I love that you offer this work to help people, to guide them through it, because most of us would like to not go through it, would like to skip past it, would like to numb it with alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever our numbing agent of choice is. Many people would rather do that and suppress it and ignore it and maybe choose something else that keeps them comfortable, keeps them not feeling that. But I believe that if you're on the entrepreneurial journey, you're here for a big growth. Like you throw yourself kind of to the wolves a little bit and you take risk, and there's a lot of unknown in this world. And I think that those of us who choose this path, we are more willing to be in that. And also on the spiritual path, those of us who are here to help others heal, we're going to have to do more of our own healing ourselves. Like we can't not heal ourselves and then be expected to help others ascend. We need to really go into it for ourselves before we can be that leader. And what would you suggest to someone who wants to step up into that next level? Like, what else can they be aware of as far as getting to that next, like when you're really in it, you're really feeling it. Let's say they just did a session with you. Like, what would you say to them after they leave to continue this work of healing? What happens in between sessions? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Well, that's your opportunity to practice with yourself. As far as my coaching, I do stay in touch with clients in between. Like they can reach out to me on Telegram and they'll have different practices that they can do in between. But that space for whatever either clicks or whatever comes up that you're like, go out feeling a bunch of freedom and flow, and you take some action and then all of a sudden you feel like a big stuckness. Cool. Like we just discovered something. So it is, I'd say, staying open to the process of discovery and not judging what comes up as I'm going backwards or something is wrong, but as, oh, there's more information, or, oh, there's something else that wants to be healed now. We really have to learn how to like trust ourselves, our bodies, and life that there, even though we don't always understand it, there is like a rhyme and a reason to what comes up and when, and it's not just things trying to sabotage us and get in our way.
Beautiful. Where can people go to learn more from you?
Well, one place is my Instagram at The Mind Body Way. I'm pretty active on there, and you can check out my website, themindbodyway.com. And I'm guessing you'll probably put some of these in the
I'll put all the links
bio
in. Yep.
and my somatic therapy website. So those are kind of like the top places you can get on my email list if you want. I like to write juicy emails and try to I know that there are a lot of people who are benefiting from my work and my content, even when they aren't working with me, because I get that a lot of your content is really helping me and speaking to me. So if you're not ready for an investment, but you want to kind of tag along and learn what you can, then I would say follow me in those places.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your wisdom. And I'm so happy we're connected and we're close by so we can do work together. I would love to try out your work myself. And I'm just so grateful for you and this path that you've chosen to help other people.
Yeah, it has been really, really good talking with you. I've enjoyed this conversation a lot and look forward to staying connected.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you to all of you for being here today with us. And we will see you next time. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking it. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, go ahead and do that now. If you know of anybody else who could benefit from watching this video, share it with them too. And thanks for being here. I hope to see you soon. Bye.